All righty. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. I'd like to introduce John, and he is here to talk about his totally interesting background and varied experiences, which landed him in the finance sector, but with a very interesting journey. So, John, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Take it away, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks, Michelle, and for having me on. So I'm John Stoj, and I am a financial planner and advisor. Spent the first 15 plus years of my career in finance, up through what we thought of as the financial crisis back in 08, 09. I feel like we're in another financial crisis right now, although it's a health crisis driven financial crisis. But after the financial crisis put a couple of my financial businesses out of business, I got tired of basically other people affecting how my business went, be it the government or people in the financial world doing things that frankly they should not have been doing, things like that. And so I did a complete 180. I decided I wanted to open my own business, and I didn't want it to have anything to do with finance at all. And so I looked at potential businesses to open, and what happens to a lot of folks, and obviously folks that are listening to your podcast, I looked at the barriers to entry to starting a food business, and they were lower than most businesses, not inconsequential, but lower. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna open a food business, and I started looking at different ones. And one of my friends from business school had actually started a grab-and-go sushi company in Kansas City, of all places, and he had always been bugging me about potentially joining him in this business. And so I looked at it and I said, well, what are you doing? And took a chance. And what he said, I want to be the Taco Bell of sushi. And I said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, so there's an idea there. Maybe we can say be the Chipotle of sushi, at least. I don't know. But he had this idea of providing sushi more to the masses. And I said, okay, well, I don't know anything about running a restaurant. I'm not that kind of people person. I am a people person, but that's not the type I am in terms of getting people in the door and stuff like that. But I can run processes. And so I like the idea of sushi because it's an assembly process, basically. If you get folks with good knife skills, you buy the right ingredients, and most importantly, and again, it's nice to talk to folks who would be listening to your show. They know if you cook the rice right, you can make good sushi. And so I said, I will open up a sushi store here in Atlanta, as long as there's no retail. So I'm going to make it all wholesale. And this is another little thing that I always talk to folks about when they ask me about starting businesses. Think about what you want to do with the business long term. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to run that business long term. So what I did know is that I wanted other folks to be able to see the value in the business, and I wanted to be able to basically sell it one day. And it's often very difficult, right, to sell food businesses because it's hard for potential buyers to know what the cash flow is going to be on a regular basis, especially if maybe a longtime owner leaves, especially if they're involved in the kitchen or production or whatever. But what I thought I could do, and this was my geeky way of applying the sort of the business numbers and analytics to the thing, is that I thought if I could create a list of clients that were regular customers, essentially, then I would have a cash flow to point to that I could then, again, show the value. So I decided I would do all wholesale. I would go out and find corporate clients. So corporate cafeterias, school cafeterias, hospitals, anybody who had a cafe in their building. Those are the types of people that I would sell to. So I went out and I built that business up, and we had relationships with the Aramarks, Sodexos, Compass Groups of the world, and we provided this sushi I ran that business for about 5 years and sold it after we had our son, because it became impossible for me we did all our production at night so that the sushi could be as fresh as possible when we delivered it for lunch the next day. So, after the umpteenth call at 1:30 in the morning, saying, "Boss, we ran out of avocados," and I had to, leave and go to Restaurant Depot or wherever to get whatever they needed. My wife said, "We need to do something about this." And again, luckily, although the foundation, I feel like I laid the foundation, but it's always luck when you get to sell something like a business. Luckily, I was able to sell it and take a few years off to help raise my son.
That's amazing. But I also, you say luck, but when I am working with my clients, one of the first things, like they come on and we do a consult call and they're like, "Dr. Fandensteel, I have dreams of, being the sushi king of Detroit or whatever." And, and I say, "Okay, no, that's great. Talk to me about where you're going to be in 5 years. Talk to me, what results are you trying to create? And what is your exit strategy that you have to think about now?" And it sounds like you really did think about your exit strategy from the very beginning.
Yes. And I'm so glad that you go through that with your clients. From listening to your podcasts in the past, I know that you go through a lot of these steps that so many business owners just want to ignore. And I get it. I had a partner in this business for a while. He in the food business, that is, and I would try to get him to focus on food costs. Look at waste, try to figure out, what was going on here, there, and everywhere. And he would constantly tell me he didn't have enough time to do it. He didn't want to do that. He didn't want to go through the process flow and figure out what was breaking down. But he was genuinely working 18 hours sometimes a day, just on all the wrong things. And that's what I think. Well, I may have heard you say this, but people they'll do work to feel like they're working, but they're not doing the right work. And so I hope that I did that, and I hope that I communicate that to folks myself now in a slightly different way when I talk to them about their financial worlds. But yeah, I mean, I had a binder for everything. And when inspectors came in and they'd go into my office or my GM's office, and they'd ask for, you name it, and we could just go right to the bookcase, and there was a binder labeled, incoming ingredients, or right, for all our logs were there, all the reasons as to why we were tracking stuff was there. That just made everything so much easier, and also it was there for a potential purchaser as well. They had a stack of papers that they could go through, and they could see how the business was run, and they could see how they could run the business the day after I left the building.
That's super important to think about, because I do audits for people who go in and buy businesses like yours, and I do what I call them food safety due diligence audits. And I walk in there, and the question is, I've done them for like private equity, and it's family run businesses, legacy family run businesses. And it's like, okay, we buy out the family members, and the institutional knowledge goes away. what's left, where is what's left, who can translate, sometimes literally translate it back into English, but where is that institutional repository of knowledge, and is it followable, is it repeatable, if not scalable, because that's where the value is.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. And that's the thing. I mean, I tell folks who aren't familiar with small and even medium-sized businesses and how they're run, not only in this country but across the world, that most of them really are run. Doesn't matter what the revenue is. A lot of them are run mom and pop style, and like you say, if that person who is running the business on a day-to-day basis, walks out the door or gets hit by a bus or whatever, there's a good chance that no one's going to really know how to do it the next day.
Right.
And so being able to provide that to a potential buyer is invaluable.
I think, yeah, we write our HACCP plan so that if the person who knows the most about the HACCP plan has a heart attack on the floor, the food remains safe.
Yeah.
Because that's literally the most likely thing that's going to happen. Unfortunately, not all that likely. So that's really, really, really interesting. So now let's bring this up to the current day, in talking about how people are like right now. So of course the restaurant industry has, I don't even know how to describe it. It has completely gone off the rails. If fine dining restaurants just kind of don't exist right now. But yet our food manufacturers, so my companies who are doing wholesale to supermarkets and independent grocery chains and that sort of thing, they could produce 24 hours a day and still not make enough food. So talk to us, what do you bring your financial experience and paint us a picture of where you see where we are now and what your thoughts are about it. Mm-hmm.
Well, so we're in a situation essentially that you obviously you hope never happens, and you hope never happens for too long of a period, right? But the parallels between small to medium-sized businesses, in this case, restaurants, food businesses, and personal financial worlds, if you want to call it that, I don't think they've ever been more synced up, which is you've run into a situation basically where you've been laid off or fired, but either way, through no fault of your own, your income is now curtailed, perhaps by 100%. But you still have some fixed costs, right? You may be responsible for some wages still. You may still be responsible for your lease, all those kinds of things. You might have spoilage in your, in your walk-ins. Just like in your house, you're still responsible for your mortgage payment. You've still got to feed your family. You may have, you may still have school bills that are coming in for kids that aren't going to school. So and you have to figure out how to get from here to wherever the other side is. And the uncertainty is obviously not knowing when that other side is coming. And then you have to figure out when you do get there, what does everything look like? What's your life going to look like? What's your business going to look like, right? Could it look the same? I mean, maybe, probably not. And so the first thing that I always tell folks when I work with them on their personal finance basis is, it sounds so basic, and you can the internet, people will shout at you from the internet about this, about creating for yourself an emergency fund. Mm-hmm. Well, you need that personally, right? Because obviously you don't want to be in a situation where if you lose your job, it becomes difficult to pay the rent or feed yourself the next month. It's the same thing, with a business, right? businesses don't fail usually because of bad ideas. They fail because of lack of working capital.
Right.
And so I, I feel a little, I don't say guilty saying that, because I know how difficult it can be, again, both on a personal basis and on a business basis, to take funds and set them aside and pretend they don't exist, because we have so many demands on what little funds do come in. Even if you have a higher revenue business, low, high, doesn't matter, right? You have demands on that revenue, and it's and as an owner, one of those demands is maybe even paying yourself, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's hard, and it has to be, obviously, but it's hard to say, okay, well, you know, we had a good month. I haven't made as much so far this year as I wanted to. I was gonna put, X dollars in the emergency fund, but instead let's go for a vacation or something like that, right? It's so
Mm-hmm.
tempting to do those things. And so I think, for me, when I work with folks, it's doing the blocking and tackling of finance first.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important. And if you can do that, then it it takes away a level of stress that you don't realize. Then you can, if you know for a fact that um, your business can survive for X months.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pick a realistic number. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 6. But if you can survive without revenue, granted, you can't have all your employees sitting around doing nothing. But with adjustments to the payroll, etc., you can survive. Then you can think about what to do next. What can you do in between while you've got time, right? You could, whenever we had Christmas break, because we had so many school clients, I mean, we did, floor to ceiling cleaning and
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable things that you wished you could do every day, but you can't, right? But so we planned for these things, right? Um, Same thing with your business. You might be able to do certain things during this period that you wouldn't when you're busy with the day-to-day operations. But if you don't have that emergency fund, and if you don't know how you're going to pay next month's make next month's lease payment, then that level of stress is going to basically wipe out your sort of whole mindset and your availability mentally to think about the future, other than getting from here till tomorrow.
Right. And I think that, we talk when I'm working with my clients, I always talk about managing your mind. And I think, when you can manage your mind, you can do an awful lot. And it is the first of the 6 assets that I talk about in a business. And the 6th asset that I talk about is the cash that you bring to a business, because, like a lot of people, so I sell the locker, and it's an upcycled shipping container for food production. So if you couldn't lease a space to make your sushi, you can lease one of these units, and it's it makes the financials more attractive because of the scalability and leasability of it versus building a stick built building. But I have folks who come to me and they're like, oh, I could build such an amazing business with this locker, and it's such a good idea, and we put millions into the economy after 4 or 5 years and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, okay, great. What's your credit score? And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you are the founder. The business is you, and it is dependent on your credit score, and that credit score is then, of course, dependent upon how you manage your cash in your own life.
Mm-hmm. That's totally true as well. And that goes into questions about when you're doing due diligence on on businesses if you're looking to buy them, if you're looking, God forbid, you were looking to go into a partnership with somebody. You have to look into all those things, and frankly, a potential partner's credit score is hugely important.
Exactly. Exactly. So let's, like we talked about some of the things food entrepreneurs can be doing right now. Like I had a conversation with somebody, I'm like, you need to take meat and poultry HACCP training, and you are in a downtime right now, and like now's the time that you have to do it. So where do you see for food entrepreneurs, and probably not people who are just starting their businesses? I'm not sure how many people are going into food right now. But for people who are looking to scale or looking to, who are going to be looking to exit in the next 2 to 3 years, what would you say are the opportunities for them, like right now with the world as the way it exists?
So I think the best thing that I could recommend is to take a look at what's happened to your business over the last month. And I think it gives you the opportunity to see what you can do in terms of introducing purposeful flexibility into the business, because there are going to be things that you're going to notice that you thought you could never live without. And you're going to realize that, I guess maybe I didn't need that. And I was paying X dollars for it, whether it be at a service or be it an employee, I hate to say, but things like that, that you can realize that can be turned into a variable cost. So if you can shift things out of your fixed costs into your variable costs, and when you are forced by an uncontrollable event to do this, your mind focuses a little better than maybe it would be if, say, you hired a consultant and they came to you and they said the exact same thing that I just said. They said, it'd be great if you would do this. You've got your fixed costs are this, and why is this under the fixed cost column? Seems like it could be variable. No, I couldn't do that. Well, you may be discovering that you can do something like that. So I would look for opportunities to make the business scalable in a positive way, as well as if in a semi-negative way, if you're forced to do something like what's been going on because of the pandemic. I had a conversation with somebody, and they were talking to me about being prepared for business, essentially business growth. And I said, I think I feel like I have my processes in place, and they said, well, okay, well, let me ask you this question. What if you got 10 calls tomorrow for 10 new clients? How would you go about onboarding those clients and all that kind of stuff? And it made me think. So it's sort of the same thing, right? You need to realize that we don't know what the world is going to look like again on the other side of the pandemic, but it's going to come back. Only thing we know is it's going to be slightly different, maybe more than slightly different. So how can you prepare yourself for those eventualities? And I think we can all figure out the fat middle of the curve. It's trying to think about the tails. That's the most important thing. What if it is not anywhere near as good as they thought, or what if this is actually super good for my business? Can I actually handle it?
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think I definitely have clients who are figuring that question out right now as well. And so that's all really good information. So do you have any resources or anything that you would recommend for people, books that you've read or other things that have really helped you on your journey?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, the internet is a great place. It can be a scary place. We all know, right? But there's a lot of there's a lot more information out there, and I want to call it on the financial side because of obviously as a financial planner and an advisor, it's what I point people to nowadays. But I also do think, as I was sort of alluding to before, is that if you're a business owner and you don't have your personal financial world in some semblance of organization, then you're going to have a hard time with your business as well, because of they overlap so much, and so there's a great product I talked about, and I don't get any sort of a plug for this, but I talked about having all the binders, in my office at the sushi store, and having everything organized. There's a great product called the emergency binder, and a woman came up with this, and she basically spent years putting together all of the things that you need in your financial world, so that if you were not, you don't even have to be hit by a bus and killed, but if you were put into a situation where you could not help your family, you could just be stuck overseas. It doesn't have to be an awful thing, but that they know where to go to get this thing, and it will give them all the instructions as to what to do. Because in families, right, there's zero, it doesn't matter, I'll say there's zero connection between or statistics real as to whether it's not always the man, the woman, or but one partner or another is going to be the one that handles most of the financial aspects of that life together. And so you want to make sure that the rest of the family, can get by if that other person, the one that handles it, isn't around.
Yeah, no, so that makes a ton of sense, and that is, I think, true of businesses as well. They definitely have to have. We call it business continuity planning.
Yeah, and you know what? That's exactly what it is. It's a financial life continuity plan.
Okay.
Right. So it's the and because of and that's the beauty of what she's done. She's put something together that leads you through the whole path. And I can give you the information. You can put it in the show notes. But
okay,
it's
all
a
right.
Great product.
Well, that would be excellent. So I think then there on that we're gonna draw the interview to a close. Let my listeners hear about. Tell us how to find you if they want to get some more information.
Sure. So the easiest way to find me, I'll give you two opportunities. You can learn more about me if for some crazy reason you want to. I'm all over the internet. My handle tends to be it's STOJBOJ, and it's actually pronounced Stoyboy because my name is weirdly pronounced and weirdly spelled. STOJ is pronounced Stoy. So STOJBOJ on all these different platforms like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that. Or you can go learn more about my financial services company. It's Verbatim Financial, and it spelled as it sounds, verbatimfinancial.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for giving us your insight today. I think that there were lots of really great things that we talked about, and I'm so glad you were able to come on the show.
No, thank you so much. It's a great opportunity.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.